There are several presidents in Africa who are in their 80s and 90s and have stayed in power for decades by altering the constitution to stay in office. In most cases, their long stay in office negatively impacts their countries through political instability, economic mismanagement, and suppression of government critics. For this reason, pressure has been mounting on them to step down and allow for a new generation of leaders. In today's video, therefore, we are going to cover some of the African presidents who are too old and should probably retire immediately. Number 10. Bola Ahmed Tinubu, Nigeria, 72 years old. Bola Ahmed Tinubu is a veteran Nigerian politician who is currently serving as the president of Nigeria since taking the office in 2023. However, because of his age, there has been rumors and reports about Tinubu's health with concerns that he may not be physically fit to handle the tough demands of the presidency. Nigeria is the most populous country in Africa, and therefore, with this huge population, the responsibility becomes even bigger. Critics argue that this kind of responsibility requires a young and energetic leader. Number 9. Abdelmajid Tebboune, Algeria, 79 years old. Abdelmajid Tebboune, who has been the president of Algeria since December 2019, has ruled the country with a combined limited economic modernization and political oppression. Though Algeria has experienced some economic development, his presidency has been shaped by political unrest, economic challenges, and foreign policy shifts. Critics argue that age is taking a toll on him and therefore he should retire. Number 8. Isaias Afwerki, Eritrea, 79 years old. Isaias Afwerki, who is the current president of Eritrea, is regarded as one of the longest-serving African presidents, having ruled the country since he led the country to independence from Ethiopia in 1993. Since he became the president, he has ruled the country with an absolute dictatorship, establishing a one-party state with no opposition parties or independent media, leading to the country being nicknamed the North Korea of Africa. There is no freedom in Eritrea, with many cases of arbitrary arrest, forced disappearances, and harsh punishment without trial. This situation has forced many Eritreans to flee their own country and seek refuge in other countries in Africa and abroad. Number 7. Ismail Omar Guelleh, Djibouti, 78 years old. Ismail Omar Guelleh is the current president of Djibouti, having ruled the country for 25 years with no sign of stepping down soon. When he became the president, he changed the constitution to remove term limits, allowing him to rule indefinitely. During his long term in office, Djibouti has experienced very little growth, with majority of the people still living below the poverty line. His government has been accused of torturing government critics and rigging elections. He is said to have benefited massively from allowing foreign countries like the US and China to set military bases in his country. Number 6. Yoweri Kaguta Museveni, Uganda, 80 years old. Yoweri Kaguta Museveni is the current president of Uganda, and he is one of the longest-serving presidents in Africa, having ruled Uganda for 40 years. Museveni rose to power through a military coup that toppled Obote's government in 1986, and in 2005, he removed term limits through constitutional changes that allowed him to extend his rule. He would later on, through his influence on the parliament, remove the age restriction, which was said to be 75 years old, allowing him to extend his long stay in power. During his long stay in power, Uganda has experienced very little development, with the majority of the people still living in abject poverty. Museveni has also been accused of torturing, jailing, and even murdering government critics to instill fear in the general populace. He has managed to stay long in power by accumulating a very loyal military, currently led by his son, General Muhoozi, that cracks down and tortures the opposition. Number 5. Denis Sassou Nguesso, Republic of the Congo, 81 years old. Denis Sassou Nguesso is the current president of the Republic of the Congo and is also one of the longest-serving presidents in Africa, having ruled the country for over 40 years. When he became the president, he oversaw constitutional changes that removed term limits and age limits, allowing him to stay in power indefinitely. His government has been accused of electoral fraud and suppression of opposition leaders. During his long stay in power, he has done very little for the people of the Republic of Congo, as the majority still live in extreme poverty. Despite the country being rich in oil reserves, he has also been implicated in several corruption cases, with his family members accused of embezzling state funds and owning luxury properties in France. Number 4. Emmerson Mnangagwa, Zimbabwe, 82 years old. Emmerson Mnangagwa is the current president of Zimbabwe, having ruled the country since 2017 after toppling the government of Robert Mugabe, who also ruled the country for decades since independence. Though he came to power with a lot of promises of economic reforms, he has largely continued Mugabe's authoritarian policies with little development, as Zimbabwe still suffers from severe inflation, food shortages, and high unemployment. His government has been accused of rigging elections, arresting opposition leaders, and restricting free speech. Though he is supposed to retire after the end of his second term, Mnangagwa, through ZANU-PF, is pushing for the scrapping of the term limits so as to extend his stay in power. Number 3. Teodoro Obiang Nguema Mbasogo, Equatorial Guinea, 82 years old. Teodoro Obiang Nguema Mbasogo is the current president of Equatorial Guinea and is the longest-serving president in Africa and the entire world, having ruled Equatorial Guinea for over 44 years. Equatorial Guinea is a very rich country, blessed with enormous oil reserves, but the majority of the people still live in extreme poverty due to resource mismanagement by the president. He has been accused of massive corruption allegations, with the government accused of embezzling public resources and abuse of human rights. He is considered one of the worst dictators, as his son, Teodoro Obiang Nguema, who is currently the vice president, is positioned to be his likely successor. His son was found guilty in a French court of embezzling state funds to buy mansions, luxury cars, and expensive watches. Number 2. Alassane Ouattara, Ivory Coast, 83 years old. Alassane Ouattara is the current president of Ivory Coast, having ruled the country since 2010, with no signs of him stepping down anytime soon. He initially promised not to run for the third term, but changed his mind in 2020, and now his political party is pushing him to run again in 2025, despite his old age. He has been accused of using security forces to suppress opposition leaders and running a sham election in 2020 that led to violent clashes that cost dozens of deaths. Number 1. Paul Biya, Cameroon, 91 years old. Paul Biya, who is the current president of Cameroon, is the oldest head of state in the world and is also the second longest serving president in Africa. At the age of 91, he can barely speak or walk and really struggles to remember things and understand his surroundings, yet insists on remaining in power. Many Cameroonians question his ability to govern effectively due to his old age and long absence from public view, as he spends most of his time in France. His government has been accused of election rigging, authoritarian rule, and cracking down of opposition leaders. During his long time in office, Cameroon has experienced very little development, and the majority of the people still live in abject poverty. Thank you for watching this video to the end. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe as I bring you more information on the African continent, people, and culture.